Those 3 words pierced through the silence like a knife through glass. The voice was small, trembling, and familiar, the voice of his 7-year-old daughter, Emily. Michael froze, his throat tightening. It had been months since he'd last heard her voice. Not since the divorce, not since his ex-wife, Clara, took Emily to live in another state, away from the chaos of his work-obsessed life. "Emily," he said, his voice cracking as he set the glass down, his heart racing. "Sweetheart, what happened? Are you okay?" There was only the sound of soft sobbing on the other end. "Mommy fell, she's not waking up. Daddy, I'm scared." The words hit Michael like a thunderclap. He didn't think, he couldn't think. Every instinct in him screamed one thing: go. Within seconds, he was out the door, his driver barely keeping up as the sleek black car tore through the city streets. He had been in boardrooms that decided the fate of companies worth billions. He had faced financial storms that would terrify most men. But this helplessness, was something he wasn't built for. His hands trembled as he called 911, his voice shaking as he gave them Clara's address. When he reached the house, the sight of flashing red and blue lights froze him in place. Paramedics were rushing in and out, and through the chaos, he saw Emily, tiny, wrapped in a pink blanket, her eyes red and swollen from crying. "Daddy!" she screamed when she saw him, and in that single moment, the walls he had built around his heart shattered. He dropped to his knees, arms open, as she ran into them. Her little body trembled against him, and he held her like his life depended on it. "What happened, baby?" he whispered. "Mommy fell in the kitchen. She wasn't moving. I called you because I didn't know what to do." The paramedics carried Clara out on a stretcher, oxygen mask over her face. She was pale, still, fragile. One of the medics looked at Michael and said, "She's still alive, but it's serious. Stroke, maybe. We're taking her to County General." He nodded numbly, holding Emily closer. "We'll follow." The drive to the hospital was silent, except for the sound of rain hitting the car roof and Emily's soft breathing as she clung to her father. For the first time in years, Michael wasn't thinking about deals, profits, or the next investment. He was thinking about every birthday he'd missed, every bedtime story he hadn't told, every call he hadn't returned. When they reached the hospital, he carried Emily inside, her head resting on his shoulder. The bright white lights felt harsh, sterile. The smell of antiseptic stung his nose. Hours passed before a doctor finally came out. "She's stable for now," the doctor said, "but she'll need time, and support." The stress, the long hours, maybe she ignored the signs. Michael nodded slowly, guilt crushing him. Clara had been the one holding everything together, raising Emily, managing a home, trying to stay strong while he chased the next million. He hadn't seen how tired she was. He hadn't wanted to see. That night, as Emily slept curled up in a hospital chair beside him, Michael sat watching the monitors beside Clara's bed. Every beep of the heart monitor felt like a second chance he didn't deserve. He reached out, gently taking her hand, the one he hadn't held in years. "Clara," he whispered, his voice breaking. "I should have been there. For you. For her. I'm sorry." She didn't stir, but something in the room shifted, a kind of peace, faint but real. The next morning, Emily woke and climbed into his lap, still half asleep. "Is Mommy going to be okay?" Michael brushed her hair back and smiled softly. "She's fighting, sweetheart. And we're going to be right here with her." Days turned into weeks. Michael cleared his entire schedule. Something his assistant had never seen before. Board meetings were canceled, trips postponed, deals put on hold. The world could wait. Every day, he brought flowers to the hospital and sat by Clara's side, telling her about Emily's drawings, her laughter, her small victories. Emily's presence brought warmth to those sterile halls. She would sing softly to her mother, draw pictures of their family, and tape them to the wall by the bed. Nurses smiled when they walked by. There was something healing about that little girl's light. One evening, as Michael was tucking Emily into bed at the hospital's family wing, she looked up at him and said, "Daddy, when Mommy wakes up, will we all live together again?" The question hit him like a hammer. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her the world. But he didn't know if Clara would want that. "We'll see, sweetheart," he said gently. "Right now, we just want Mommy to get better." Emily nodded, eyes heavy with sleep. "I prayed last night," she murmured. "I told God to make Mommy better, and to make you happy again." He smiled through tears. "You did." She nodded. "You used to smile more in the pictures. I think you forgot how." After she fell asleep, Michael walked back to Clara's room. The monitors beeped softly. The room was quiet except for the sound of rain outside, the same rain from the night this all began. He sat down and took her hand again, closing his eyes. "Emily's right," he whispered. "I forgot how to smile. I forgot how to live for something other than money. I forgot you." And for the first time, he prayed, not for success, not for more time, but for forgiveness. Days later, the miracle came quietly. He was reading a bedtime story to Emily when a nurse rushed in. "Mr. Turner, she's awake." He and Emily ran down the hall, hearts pounding. Clara's eyes fluttered open as they entered. Her voice was weak but steady. "Michael, Emily." Emily burst into tears, clinging to her mother's arm. Michael stood at the foot of the bed, unable to speak. Clara looked at him, tired but smiling faintly. "You're here," she whispered. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, tears streaming down his face. The months that followed changed everything. Clara recovered slowly, and Michael stayed by her side every step of the way. He built a routine: school drop-offs, hospital visits, bedtime stories. His world shrank from boardrooms to playgrounds, from numbers to laughter. And somehow, it felt bigger than ever. One night, when Clara was strong enough to walk, they sat on the porch outside her house, watching the sunset. Emily was chasing fireflies on the lawn. The golden light painted her hair like a halo. "I can't believe she called you that night," Clara said softly. "She's never used your number before." Michael smiled faintly. "I think she was meant to. Maybe, we all were meant to get a wake-up call." Clara looked at him, her eyes tired but full of something he hadn't seen in years: trust. "You've changed, Michael." "I had to," he said quietly. "I lost sight of what mattered. But Emily's call, it brought me home." They sat in silence for a long time, listening to the sound of crickets and Emily's laughter. From that night on, Michael didn't just rebuild his fortune, he rebuilt his family. He sold off one of his companies and started a foundation in Clara's name, funding emergency hotlines for families in crisis. Every time a parent got help, every time a child was saved, he felt like he was honoring the miracle that saved his own. And sometimes, late at night, when Emily would come running into his arms after a nightmare, whispering, "Daddy, it hurts," he would hold her close and say, "I know, sweetheart. But I'm here now. And I always will be." Years later, when Emily graduated high school, she stood on stage, her valedictorian speech trembling with emotion. "My dad taught me that no matter how far someone falls, love can bring them back. Because once upon a time, a little girl made a call, and her daddy answered." The crowd rose to their feet, clapping through tears. In the front row, Michael and Clara held hands, their faces glowing with pride. That night, as they celebrated under the same city lights that once reflected off Michael's lonely penthouse windows, he looked up and whispered a quiet thank you to the little voice that changed everything. Sometimes, all it takes is one call, one moment, one heartbeat, to remind us what really matters. And for Michael Turner, that reminder came in the trembling voice of a little girl who said, "Daddy, it hurts," and gave him back his heart.